Are you recording?
Perfect.
Love it. Welcome back, Rocky Road family. Just Mandy and I today. Giggles McGee over there. Why are you laughing?
I don't know. It's just funny when it says recording in progress. We
Recording
switched to Zoom
in
recently and it's been going
Yeah.
better for sure, but it's just a more sudden. Our last platform had at least had a countdown. This is like ready, go.
Yeah. It's like, you're on.
Yeah.
We'll do it live. And
Right,
not
exactly.
Yeah. Anywho, all right. So, just Mandy and I today. We're going to talk about another kind of, not a self-help topic, but just trying to give you some more info on how to help you support other people who are going through some stuff. But first, I want to hear, we decided to do a new little segment called Peak of the Week. So we talk about peaks and pits, and peaks being super exciting things, pits being things that you're working through. My current pit is that my dog won't stop barking while I'm recording. But peak of the week might be something small, but I think for all of the heavy topics that we talk about and all of the hard stuff that we dive into, it's so important to look at that kind of the golden thread, the silver lining, whichever shiny color you want to call it, and hang on to those moments that help us to better do what we do and stay positive. So, Mandy, what's your peak?
So I had a very difficult couple weeks with my coffee trailer. So if you are just tuning in now and figuring that out, I own a mobile coffee trailer business where I serve coffee out of a little 5x10 trailer. And I had a couple of difficult weeks with that, just with some regulation issues and trying to get some things ironed out. And I went back out again yesterday for another event, and it was a very successful event. So I was very excited to be able to be back out on the road. I guess, I don't know. There's just like this road theme we have going on, like traveling around. Honestly, that's all I do. That's, people will say if they know, Mandy well enough that her favorite place to be is on the tarmac in the plane, ready to take off and go somewhere. So, yeah, so that was probably my peak of the week so far, even though it's Thursday. I will also say this, that my daughter's in VBS this week, and that has been super fun to pick her up and hear everything she's learning. So not one moment in particular, but just a collective moments of a fun week for her. So that's been really fun to see because it's summertime. So
yeah.
What about you?
So far, you're right. So far. So we have a couple more days left in our week, but I was able to attend last night an event that I totally forgot it was happening until I got the reminder that this is starting now. But it was for one of our guests that has an episode coming up. And it was just really, really cool because it was at a local brewery. I could bring the dog. So Cody and Cody's mom and Arthur and I were there and just hanging out, I got to talk to some of the foster families. I got to talk to some small business owners, and I saw some people from church. I saw some other people that just wanted to lay on the ground with my dog. And it was just a really fun event. And it was inclusive in a way that yes, it's at a brewery, but there's food, there's different things. There was a dunk tank, there were raffle baskets. It's just a really cool, fun family thing. And that was really exciting to really see, her name is Janae, to see Janae's mission, the Kindness Project in action, and supporting, the families that were there were families that she's helped as well. And it was really cool just to hear some of those stories. Just really uplifting.
Yeah. I'm kind of jealous. I wanted to go.
I know, but you had to have a very successful trailer event. So
I did. Yep. And I got some free funnel cake out of it. So I guess that works. Yeah.
There you go.
Fun. It was good.
There you
go. A good time.
I tried a carrot beer. It was actually delicious. I can't remember what it was called, but it was made out of carrots.
That's so bizarre.
And I didn't even taste it. They're like, do you want to do a little taste? I was like, nah, don't want the whole thing.
Oh my God. Was it like carrot cake? Like, was it sweet or was it carrot?
No, I forgot it was made of carrots halfway through.
Oh my gosh.
It was just like, it had like an essence of carrot. And then I was like, oh, this is what this actually is made of. Okay. I remember now. It was good. Surprisingly good.
I had a hot dog with a pickle on it, like a full spear pickle on it.
That seems excessive. Like together? Like
it was really good. It was a hot dog with a full pickle with the hot dog with ketchup, mustard, and onions on the top. It was Really good.
Okay.
I don't know. Hey, listen, you learn to try a lot of new foods when you go out to these little markets and events.
Oh,
And
that's
stuff.
true. Yeah, I'm sure.
They're
I'm
pretty
sure you've had.
cool. I do have to
That's
tell
not.
you, this is one little thing that happened yesterday, and shout out to this person because it was what a concept. At the event last night, it was so funny because there's this bus. It was like a short bus, but it was painted dark green, and the back and the back side of it had these wooden like a fence basically, and 4 Burmese mountain dogs were in this bus, and they sold it was classified as the world's best bone or something, and they were all beef bones and dog bones,
Nice.
like legit with the beef on them and stuff,
Yeah.
frozen. And the 4 dogs just would stand on the side and put their heads out, and everybody would pet them, and they were the happiest, cutest dogs. I mean, they're big dogs, right? They're like our size, and there was 4 of them in there, and they like I went over to pet them, and I pet it, and the one stuck its butt to the fence and was like, please pet me here. And then they like all sit outside and look around the corner like, who's gonna pet us next? And
That's
I was
so
like, wow,
cute.
what a concept. Their owner just sits in the front and sells these dog bones, and these 4 dogs just get loved all night long.
Oh yeah. It's like there were mini cows at the thing last night, like little miniature cows. So they were smaller than Arthur. But like the same thing, like he wasn't selling anything. He was just like for petting purposes. But like that, come on, like people are gonna flock over to come and be like, oh, what are you selling? $5? Sure, sounds good. Kids, go ahead, keep petting the cows. Like,
yeah, of course. Seriously.
And then it makes other people happy too. Like petting animals does like lower I can't remember which
cortisol.
Yes, thank you. And like it raises endorphins, just like getting a hug. And so being able to pet animals.
Those are the good things. Yeah. So thank you for the pit of the week. Peak of the week.
Peak of the week.
Of the week. Oh my gosh. Wow, that's like embarrassing to say that.
Is this your podcast?
This is my cynical brain just working. That's all it is.
Oh, no.
Like, I want to focus on the bad things. Okay.
Okay. Well, that's a really good connection though, because like sometimes we can't think of peaks. Sometimes we can only think of the pits. And so sometimes people are that's all they can be in is just in that pit because of something they're going through. And different people have way different ways that they share that they're going through things with others. And so 2 weeks ago, we talked about why it's important to share your struggles. And then we're turning it on the other side of that coin. And we're going to talk about, okay, what happens when someone is in need of support? It may be that they're actively sharing their struggle with you currently sitting face to face. It could be you notice that they're not the same. It could be you hear from someone else, hey, I'm concerned about this person. So we could talk ad nauseum because there's so many different scenarios and there's nuances to every single scenario. But, we were built for community. We need the support of other people, and not everybody is great at knowing how to support. Perfect example. Preface. Y'all know I love my husband. He tries to solve things when I like try to talk through things. He's like, well, why don't you do this? I'm like, no, I just want you to listen. Yeah. He's like, well, you should have done. I'm like, no. And I paused and I said, Cody, listen, I don't want a solution. I just want you to listen. And so sometimes people need to be told how to help support. And so that's what we're here for, just for some ideas. This is not a checkbox list of every single thing. If you do these 10 things, you'll be the best, most supportive person ever, because it all depends on the context. It depends on the issue. It depends on the person you're with. It depends on your relationship. It depends on how you are doing mentally. It depends on how they are doing mentally. So we're just going to throw a few things out there that are hopefully helpful.
Yeah.
Sounds good. Yeah. So I have a list, as usual, no one's surprised. But the most important thing to remember is that when someone is sharing something that they're struggling with, it is not your responsibility to solve it. And that's where I think a lot of us go to is we try to give advice. We try to give support in ways that may or may not be helpful in the moment to help them feel better right now. We're looking future. Well, if you're a 10-year-old kid and you're screaming, crying, totally beside yourself for some reason, talking about self-regulation skills and how in the future this isn't going to matter, that's not helpful to that 10-year-old. They just need to get some of that off their chest. And then maybe afterwards you can verbally process. So when you're supporting someone, validation can come in a lot of different ways. And what we mean by validation is not necessarily saying that your emotions are correct, your reaction was correct, because there's not right or wrong. There is right or wrong, but in this scenario, validation does not mean right or wrong. Validation means I see you, I hear you, I understand you're upset.
Mm-hmm.
And for some people, that could be all that they need
Mm-hmm.
is I see you, I hear you.
Mm-hmm.
And so if someone approaches you with an issue, being able to listen to hear, not even listen to understand, but listen to hear what they are saying
Mm-hmm.
and not try to solve all the world's problems in one sitting, you're already off to a really, really, really good start.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So I think a lot of people also try to listen to understand. Sometimes I don't understand. People tell me about issues, again, with my clients. I cannot relate to every single thing that they're going through. There's no possible way.
Mm-hmm.
Right? Another example, my best friend just had a baby. New mom stuff, like all sorts of different stuff. They're doing a great job. I'm really proud of her. She's really proud of herself, and her husband. And there's just some things that come up and that are frustrating that she has to vent out and that she has to tell me about. And I can understand to a certain point.
Mm-hmm.
But having not popped a baby out, I can only understand to a certain point. So I listen to hear
Mm-hmm.
and support.
Yeah.
I'm not going to be able to solve her problems because I don't know what it's like to get up at 3 a.m. and feed an 8-week-old baby. I just have no idea.
Yeah.
You know, pets
Yeah.
are different. They're not human babies.
Yeah.
So to be able to say, I know I don't understand, but I can still support in some way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think I would say that you're probably like a queen listener because you listen so well that sometimes I'm like, what is she thinking? Because sometimes, like you're saying, the validation is a great thing to have and listening and acknowledging that you're hearing them. But I find it so helpful too when people are listening to me and they just at least in the moment say like, yeah, you're right.
True.
You're right. You're right.
Mm-hmm.
And then once you process through it and then you maybe take a step back. Maybe it's, later that evening or the next day, or even a week later, depending on the size of this event or this, whatever is happening. You start seeing another perspective if you're open to it. But
Mm-hmm.
in the moment when you're really heated and very frustrated and you just want somebody to hear you.
Mm-hmm.
Again, this kind of goes back to the same thing where when you choose that person to talk to, like we talked about 2 weeks ago, picking somebody who is not a high emotional reactor to things so that they can just listen to you and you have somebody there that hears what you're saying, maybe says, yes, okay. And then later may say, let's talk about that again now that you're cooled off or something. Yeah, listening is a very hard thing to do. I think in a world where people want to be heard, it's very hard to listen. And sometimes it is, people want to enter their advice. They want to say, well, you should have done this, or you should have done this, or change things, or tell you how to react now. Well, if I were you, I would do X, Y, Z. And that's equally unhelpful, I would say,
Mm-hmm.
in most cases,
Mm-hmm.
because we don't want to act out of our emotions and
Mm-hmm.
make decisions out of high emotions. So listening is a very hard thing to do. So if you find somebody who is a good listener, hang on to them because that's a gift to have. So yeah, I just think that's a very hard thing for me to do too, to be present in the moment and to listen to somebody going through something. It is hard. It's a skill and it's not something that everybody has.
That's another really important point you just brought up was the presence, because I'm sure every person can think of an example of a time when they're looking at someone and talking to someone and all that person is doing is looking at what's happening behind the other person.
Yeah. Or thinking of
Right?
what they have to make for dinner that night.
Yeah, it's very easy to tell when someone isn't present,
Mm-hmm.
and being present can feel stifling for some people because they can feel locked in a conversation.
Yeah.
But man, if you've never been like really locked in a conversation in the middle of a busy room and you two are the only people, like I had this moment last night with someone who I don't know very well, but she and I were just talking for maybe 15 minutes. And it was just like, I am here, you are here. We don't need to talk about anything else but what we are addressing right now.
Mm-hmm.
And it wasn't an issue. We were just getting to know each other a little bit. But being able to say, Nothing else that's happening is important to me. You are here. You are important to me. You are my priority.
Mm-hmm.
Lots of people don't have the opportunity to be the sole focus of someone else's attention
Yeah.
in a good way, in a supportive way.
Mm-hmm. And that happens maybe throughout their whole life. Maybe they're in
Mhm.
a family of 4 kids. And when do you
Mhm.
actually get that one-on-one present moment with mom or with dad or with one sibling where there's not another sibling acting out or another sibling taking all the attention, or mom and dad are fighting or they're busy or you're running around? It's so people crave that presence. I think they want somebody to be there in that moment.
Mhm.
And then when they have that, they sometimes want to keep it. So you do
Mhm.
feel locked into a conversation
Yeah.
at times because, you're talking to somebody and you have their present complete focus. And you just wanted to soak that up as much as you can.
Mhm.
Um, but I agree with you. I think it's a very easy thing to know whether or not someone is present with you in your conversation, or whether they're
Mhm.
thinking of what they need to do or what their kids are doing, or and I'm totally guilty of that too. It's very easy to be distracted. So,
Mhm. It is. And when, so this is more on the realm of when you are sharing, like if maybe you're the person who needs support. I've said this on the podcast before, is one of the most validating things that I've heard someone do when they needed support, and the most respectful things is, again, my best friend calls me, hey, do you have like 15 to 20 minutes to talk through something with me? And making sure that you're not bombarding someone in the middle of the grocery store,
right.
or you're not just dropping something. And so we can't always control when we're going to emotionally unload. Ideally, we have
Mhm.
good self-care, and ideally we are at a point where we can control to a certain extent when and where we unload our baggage.
Yeah.
And
And we actually talked about this 2 weeks ago. What you said, we're asking somebody for permission on this episode. In this realm, I think it's okay to say, I can't talk right now.
mm-hmm,
When someone wants support from you, it's okay to
mm-hmm,
say, I would love to talk to you. I'll call you in a couple minutes. I'll call you in a few hours.
mm-hmm,
I'll call you tomorrow. Whatever it is that you need in order to give that person the presence that they want, the
mm-hmm,
validation that they're seeking, just to have that self-awareness and those boundaries that are very hard for people that love people, to just say, I can't talk to you right now. I'm in the middle of the grocery store.
mm-hmm,
I'm checking out right now at Target, whatever it is.
mm-hmm. Always at Target.
And
Um,
yeah.
well, additionally, too, and these points that we're making are just kind of seamlessly working their way through my list, which is perfect. It never goes like this. It's never this smooth. I love it. What have we done today? But knowing you might not be the best person for them to talk to.
Yeah.
So in this little bullet point, I called knowing when to refer. And so when we do, there's a suicide prevention tool called QPR. It's supposed to be similar to like CPR, so people remember. So it's the last part of that is refer, because we can be the most supportive person in the whole entire world to someone, and we might not be enough in that
Mhm.
moment. And so
Yeah.
knowing when, okay, this might be a mental health crisis.
Yeah.
Okay, this person needs some time to themselves without the kids. So maybe referring to their partner,
Mhm.
maybe referring to mental health services, or it could even be an ER. Like, hey, do you think you want to take a drive to the ER with me so we can get a mental health assessment? Not many people know this, but you can go get a mental health assessment at any ER in the country, any single one.
Mhm.
Um, and being able to say, I think this issue is bigger than you and bigger than me,
Yeah.
and I'm going to help connect you to something that will hopefully help you more than I am capable of doing so. And a lot of people don't. I wish there were little, we should make one of these resource like bulletins saying, okay, here's, if you are feeling this type of symptom, here's who you should call. If you need this kind of help, here's who you should call. It's like the yellow pages of the local area and all
Yeah.
services, right?
Right. And I think
Because
exactly what you're saying is just a good reminder to have in this episode, because we can be, what we're talking about and how you're supporting somebody who's struggling would be on a friend basis. But if it's something that is more extreme, always suggest counseling, therapy, if it is so far to an ER to get an inpatient, mental health, something, if it goes on those lines. So the basic of what we're talking about when you support somebody who is struggling, as far as like listening and validation, is a normal friend to friend relationship. Don't feel like you have to carry the burden of solving their problems, like you said in the beginning of the episode. And also don't feel like you need to be their counselor. If somebody's coming to you all the time for something that's consistent, that is a sign, the flag to refer them to mental health. Like, this is something you're struggling with daily. This is something you're struggling with regularly. Would you be interested in seeking counseling? And then, it can be this little web of tiptoes sometimes, but on the regular, on the normal, if it's something, I would say, quote, simple, or I don't know, the level of you would cap it at, but don't take on the role of a counselor as a friend. A friend is a friend, and stay in that position.
And being able to know where your relationship is and if that will be taken well. Like, I have a scenario, I have two people in my life right now who I know if I offered any sort of, would you like me to connect you to this? Would you like me? It would exacerbate the issue and it would make it worse, because then they would see me as an enemy.
Right. Yeah.
Right.
Or
and
they
so
may be offended that you may think there's something wrong with them.
Exactly. And they might not have the awareness that you do of their, and this is specific mental health, a little levels up than like typical day stressors.
Right.
But being able to be aware that I could say, this is what I think should happen, and this is what I think is the best for them. But guess what? Not about you. It's about validating and supporting that person. Not saying that what they're doing is right. Not saying that, keep on going. And, because if they're actually doing things to harm people, that's a whole nother story. But having the awareness of, I can have my opinions and I can have what I think would be the best case scenario to handle this issue. Yeah. But there are very few people that you'll be able to actually say that to. And in that case as well, if you are going to provide some sort of advice, I would even say, are you open to hearing my thoughts on this?
Absolutely.
Instead of just inserting, well, you should have done this. No.
Something unsolicited.
Exactly. So being able to, just that little phrase of, are you open to hearing my thoughts on this? Or would you rather just offload a little bit?
Yeah. I think along the same lines too, when somebody has something going on and they call you and they're talking to you, whatever, however that may play out, having the keys of what we're talking about with the validation and the listening ear, I feel like often prevents things from turning into gossip as well. And keeping that level-headed, I will listen to you and I will hear you, but I won't play into the role of jumping in the situation, because I think a lot of times it's not on us, and it's not always our fault, quote, in a way that it's just natural living as humans, that a lot of our issues are because of other people and maybe because of another scenario that someone else is going through, or, there's so many interwoven connections that can happen that can hurt somebody or cause somebody to just struggle through something. For example, I know somebody going through a breakup, and it was some kind of unknown possible affair thing that was happening, like a weird thing. And she was just really frustrated, and just listening and talking instead of stepping in and making the assumption and saying, well, this is what happened, and that girl that he's seeing, she's this kind of person, and whatever, however you want to categorize it, which is unfair to say. If you just listen and you just validate, yes, I know this hurts. Yes, I know this is hard. Yes, I hear you. I see you upset. It'll prevent those little tag rabbit trails of, let's pull this other person that maybe you don't know, maybe you've never talked to, let's pull them into a scenario that they don't need to be in. And then your
Mm-hmm.
conversation goes from 45 minutes to 6 hours long, because then you're just dissecting this other person's personality and this
Mm-hmm.
guy's personality and this girl, and how it didn't work from the start, and blah, 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 whatever. So, and then, so I think it really is just listening. Like, I can listen to her and just hear what she has to say and be there to support her and tell her that I love her and encourage her and be there for her. And she finds a lot of comfort in that. And even just saying
Mm-hmm.
validation things like, you deserve somebody that treats you better. She was like, thank you for
Mm-hmm.
saying that. You're not pulling in the problem. You're trying to just redirect and encourage as you're supporting that
Mm-hmm.
person. So I think that it's just helpful to just keep it focused on the person instead
Mm-hmm.
of the scenario.
Well, in addition to, I think it's important to talk about that gossip aspect too, where if you are trying to help someone through a particular issue, for example, let's say, I mean, this is like one of the most cut and dry, but like, let's say a marriage with children ends for some reason. Do you want to be the person who speaks negatively about that child's mother in front of the children?
Mm-hmm.
And then being able, so like people here, every time you work through something with someone, you could intentionally bash someone to make someone feel better, which has lasting effects. Especially, let's say they get back together and they remember, oh, you said all this nasty stuff about my wife.
Mm-hmm.
I remember that you said that. I think you were trying to be supportive, but you were really mean about it. And so that can color your whole relationship. And so thinking about the longevity of anything that you're going to say, yes, sure. If someone's going through a nasty breakup, you can make jokes about taking a baseball bat to his car. We're not actually going to do it, people. We're not going to do that. We're not going to go Carrie Underwood on someone's ex. That's okay. And if it's a realistic thing that's going to happen, maybe get yourself some more stable friends. But being able to say, are you being respectful to the person you're listening to, but also to the entire scenario?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. So I think even as we kind of wrap this up, there's like these different layers that we have to unpack as you're trying to help somebody. So when someone is struggling, you want to listen, you want to validate, let them know that they're heard, encourage them, just tell them, it's going to be okay. And then as you're doing this and being that support system for a person, we also need to have our own support systems. So we can't carry the weight of someone else's problems, which is very hard to do. Hard to not do, I should say. And so then you feel really bad. So we ourselves have to have people that care for us too. So it really is this sandwich where if you're caring for somebody, you need to be able to unload something on someone else without gossip, without making it a bigger deal. Maybe pick somebody who's totally unrelated to a situation, which would be a great thing to do. Talk to somebody who has no idea who any of these people are.
Like a therapist or a counselor.
A therapist or a counselor, yes. And having somebody to go to that can support you, that you can also then pour into other people. It's the whole thing of you can't pour if your cup is empty, So having people pour into you, and then really realizing if there is something that is consistent, something that is a repeated pattern, maybe there is something deeper than just a one-time, maybe two-time event of some sort. If it's something that is consistent, really looking out for the person that is coming to you for support, again, in the right timing, maybe in the right phrasing, referring to a counselor. Or have you ever thought about doing counseling, or have you ever heard of this scenario? Maybe that's putting them in a different position, whatever that may be. It may not always be appropriate. And people have to want to be helped in order to be helped. If they're not open to that, they'll just stay the same. So, just like finding that balance, supporting people. It's a hard thing to do, to support somebody, but it's also a very rewarding thing to do, because in return, they're going to be very grateful for you, theoretically. And again, then you go get support in your own avenue, whether that's another trusted friend, a counselor, therapist, whatever that may be.
We're almost diving into like therapeutic verbal skills territory here, with like the way you phrase questions and offer suggestions and things like that. So if that's something that people are interested in more specific techniques and how to ask questions and how to, that could be a really cool little like series where even a course or something that we could provide to people, how to be a good active listener, how to reflect, how to phrase questions as suggestions and not as, that could be really interesting. So if you're interested in that, let us know, because we want to provide whatever we can based on our own understanding and our own wheelhouse and our own experience and our education. So that could be a very cool thing to try out as a workshop idea. So let us know if you want that. And even if you don't, we might offer it and see what happens.
And have fun supporting those around you.
Absolutely.
And being supportive and supported. Wow, that's a lot. That's going to be one of those words where you hear it so many times it doesn't sound like the right word,
Mm-hmm.
That's all for this week.
Bye.